Mr. Lauren, and I'm your host today for a wonderful experience on a journey to faraway places and unnatural things in the Confederacy of Dunces. Now, we'll be meeting some people today. Oh, they'll be interesting. We're going to see insights, intrigue, and, if we're lucky, maybe some analysis that we haven't quite heard of yet. Well, what are we waiting for here? Let's get started. Well, before we take a dive into all this literature, we have to summarize some of the plots so that you can get a background on the things that have once been, that are occurring within while you're reading, and that will happen and will be expanded upon while we explore this fine work. Now, A Confederacy of Dunces starts with a big, burly man named Ignatius J. Riley, who has no job, is 30 years old, and lives with his widowed mother. Ignatius J. Riley lives in New Orleans, but only once in his life did he move out to Baton Rouge, and this seems to be the defining moment in this man's life. Ignatius is overweight, overeducated, and overindulged. He's rejected the Catholicism that was preached to him in his childhood because he feels himself superior. Oh yes. The green hat that Ignatius wears everywhere in the beginning attracts the attention of police officer Angelo Mancuso, but Ignatius escapes arrest when old Claude Robichaud steps in, ranting against communist conspiracies. Ignatius and his mother seek revenge in a nearby bar, dark and unfriendly. Irene befriends a young gay man, Dorian Green, who Ignatius dismisses as a degenerate. Lana Lee, the owner of the Nightjoy, is a Nazi in Ignatius' eyes. Lana hires a young black man, Jones, to sweep the bar for sub-minimum wages by threatening to turn him into the police for vagrancy. In return, Jones looks for an opportunity to bring Lana's business down. Pardon me, even the most wise of people get lost. Let's see, where was I? On the way home from the bar, Irene crashes her car into a building, causing considerable damage. The hapless Mancuso, now assigned to undercover work as a first step towards being thrown off the force, feels sorry for Irene and arranges time payments for her debt. Now, moving forward. Ignatius' first job as a file clerk in the floundering, Levy Pants Company, where he sets his mind to improving operations and drawing Gus Levy back into the day-to-day business. Gus, regularly besieged by his Harvey wife, prefers to leave details to his hapless office manager, Gonzalez, poorly assisted by the senile Miss Trixie. No, Trixie only wants to retire, but Mrs. Levy, an amateur psychologist, demands that she be kept on and made to feel wanted. With the best intentions, Ignatius forges an insulting letter to a Levy Pants distributor, which precipitates a $500,000 libel suit against Gus and organizes the factory workers, mostly black, in demonstration for better conditions. For the latter, Ignatius is fired. Ignatius's nose leads him accidentally into his second job as a hot dog vendor for Paradise Products Incorporated. Irene despises hot dog vendors and Ignatius's meager take-home pay. The result of a ravenous appetite combined with indifferences to sales increases tension in the Riley home. Ignatius is dressed as a pirate, assigned for the French Quarter, and ordered to sell or be fired. There, he forms a political alliance with Dorian Green and unwittingly rents space in his car for the soft pornography Lana and George peddle to schools and school children. All of the characters now begin to seek professional help for Ignatius. When Ignatius addresses a political rally about his new sodomite party, Irene, Santa, Nancussa, and Claude all come in to intervene. After being kicked out of the political rally, Ignatius goes to the Night of Joy bar, where by Jones, he is used to sabotage Lana's business. Ignatius ends up lying whale-like in the gutter, and then Usco breaks the citywide pornography ring. Newspaper coverage gets Ignatius fired from Paradise Productions, and helps Gus Levy figure out who forwards the letter. Ignatius puts the blame on senile Trixie, which is convenient for everyone. Finally, Irene wants to admit Ignatius into a mental hospital. However, right when he's about to go, his ex-girlfriend from New York drives all the way down to New Orleans to save him from his demise. As he and his girlfriend drive away, he realizes that Myrna's advice had been right all along. We can move on to truly address the matters at hand. We will be talking with Oliver Schneebly, Professor James Quincy Dugenberg, Winston Hefferton III, Olga von Stoop, and Matt. Let's begin.
Hello scholars, my name is Olga von Stoop, and I would like to discuss symbols in a Confederacy of Dunces. Primarily, the symbol of the pornographic materials of Lana Lee symbolize Ignatius's desires to learn more as opposed to become sexually involved with his childhood lover, Myrna, from college. He typically seems asexual throughout the novel and is almost disgusted and repulsed by Myrna's come-ons in her letters. However, once he sees these pornographic materials of the girl with the globe and the philosophical novel in her hands, he's immediately attracted to her and hopes to meet her and have sexual relations with her. Heavy pants symbolizes the empty souls of the workers inside. They lack hope because they are Negroes and are therefore second class in this time. And in the novel, these empty workers, or empty-souled workers, relate to Ignatius because Ignatius thinks that in his ignorance he goes into the factory trying to work up their morale, and they end up turning on him. And if Ignatius, who is supposedly a middle-class citizen and is white and has a college degree, cannot compete with the Negroes, then why are the Negroes the second-class citizens? The workers rebelled against Ignatius as soon as they found out he was wanted for a possible crime. The workers are constantly scared of being convicted of vagrancy because if they had no job, then they would clearly just be criminals on the street, causing trouble and mischief amongst the young Americans in New Orleans. And another person, Jones, is very scared of being convicted of vagrancy, which is why he works for such low wages in the Night of Joy. And the Night of Joy is a symbol for the lack of hope that Jones has and his ability to just rest on his laurels as a person because of the discriminations and prejudices still existing at this time. In addition, the cockatoo that works in the Night of Joy with the stripper demonstrates the way that fate catches up to a person no matter what. Once they are born into a place in society, no matter how hard they work to move up in class, similar to Pride and Prejudice and Vanity Fair, people are destined to be in that class forever. The way that the stripper works so hard on her acts, but still is being paid minimal wages, just like Jones, demonstrates that, despite if you go to college or despite if you work hard in school and you make good grades, you are who your parents are, and you will never escape that. John Kennedy Toole also parallels modern society to medieval society in his use of romance allegory and his heroic adventures. The damsel in distress, who is actually Ignatius's mom, Mrs. O'Reilly, is upset in her place in society and the way that Ignatius treats her. He expects her to be a modern-day slave, and she's constantly being asked to stay inside and not go out and do fun things like bowling and going to movies with her friends. And she actually bursts into tears in the middle of a movie when Clyde grabs her hand, because it reminds her of when her husband had originally first held her hand the night that they conceived Ignatius. And Mrs. O'Reilly, therefore, is a symbol of the romance that could exist in Ignatius's life had he experienced, or had he a desire to experience this romance. Instead, he doesn't care for adventures, and he would rather be idle and do as the nobles did and sit in his place in society as if he is better than others. Which is a comment on the slow evolution of humanity and the true ignorance of most human beings.
I'm on the edge of my seat, Olga von Stoop.
How you doing, folks? My name's Oliver Schneebly, and I'm discussing the theme of fate today in the Confederacy of Dunces. Now, this book is a great one, a really good one, but most of the characters in the novel, they have no power over the destiny, okay? I'm going to dwell into this, okay, further, and I want to explore some of the issues and the key points about fate and how Ignatius specifically deals with his fate. Now, Ignatius, he kind of has a fixated fate. He can't really control anything in his life. Ignatius, you see, acts as an instrument of fate, okay? He's really in no control over his own life. He's simply along for the ride, attending to other characters' patterns and their lifestyles. Like in other Greek tragedies, for example, Oedipus Rex, characters encounter periods of premeditated fate, where they have no control over their future. Ignatius constantly deals with suffering and pains, although he bears no responsibility for any of these things. It seems he's simply cursed. Once again, like Oedipus Rex, Ignatius, despite this fixated fate, does produce some felix culpa, which means goodness out of the bad. For example, at the end of the novel, Ignatius's despair leads to Patrolman Mancuso's eventual promotion and respect that he's never gotten before. It ends up helping another character in the novel. Ignatius's misfortune leads to another character's benefit. It parallels tightly to Oedipus when he is finally ratted out as the kingdom's traitor, and subsequently, the city of Thebes and Thebes' people are happily absolved of the corruption they have endured for so many years. Similarly, it is Ignatius's lie about who wrote the letter to Mr. Abelman that finally enables Miss Trixie to get a retirement. Inevitably, Ignatius decides his fate is the product of a blind goddess named Fortuna. He himself has no true influence on the path his future will take. He places all his trust wholeheartedly in the control of those around him, showing lack of self-confidence and cowardice. Now moving on to the theme of modern slavery and the prejudices in a Confederacy of Dunces. Now, while legalized slavery was a thing of the past in the United States, African Americans in Toole's time in the novel remained second-class citizens, particularly in the South. The novel suggests that there is persistent of modern economic slavery. This theme is first introduced in the police precinct, when Burma Jones, a young black man, has been arrested for stealing cashew nuts. I love cashew nuts. Now, when Burma Jones is released from jail, he must find employment or face the possibility of being taken back to prison on vagrancy charges. Okay? A common fate for African Americans at this time. As a result, he is left vulnerable to the economic exploitation and is forced to take a job for well below the minimum wage. No matter how much abuse he suffers at the hand of his boss, he cannot escape his employment for the fear of arrest. Similarly, the Levy Pants Factory, staffed entirely by African Americans, symbolizes the modern plantation. Upon entering the factory, Ignatius describes it as a modern Negro slavery mechanized plant. It represents the progress which Negroes had made from picking cotton to tailoring it. Another prominent theme of Confederacy of Dunces is the theme of American work ethic. Now, traditional American values emphasize hard work and self-reliance, while Ignatius Riley exemplifies a disposition against such an ethic. He is incredibly lazy, obvious by the cover, and expects his mother to be at his beck and call every single waking moment. If not for the debt created by the car accident and Miss Riley's insistence that he find a job, Ignatius would spend all his days lying in bed. His contempt for a life of work contrasts sharply with the value that American society, particularly the American middle class, has placed on it. Ignatius's disposition also manifests itself as an assault on the American dream of financial advancement and material comfort. These are precisely the goals of many characters in the novel. Miss Riley is constantly obsessed with her debt and finding a way to pay it off. Further, she only consents to being set up with Claude Robichaud when she learns that he is financially comfortable and may provide a solution to her financial woes. Ignatius, by contrast, rejects all things commercial and places no value on climbing the economic ladder. So folks, these are some of the key points that need to be made in the book Confederacy of Dunces. I found these very intriguing, and hopefully I expanded and taught you a little bit more about the subjects. My name's Oliver Schneebly. See you later.
Thank you very much, Professor Schneebly.
Hello, my name is Matt, and I am a scholar of Toul at the University of East Africa. Toul's unique choice of setting is one of the most striking aspects of this novel. He chooses a post-emancipation New Orleans to discuss the topics at hand. One such topic is the unjust working conditions for the lower classes of New Orleans. As Toul so astutely points out, he suspects that the workers once again enjoy the climate of their forebears, the tropic heat somewhat magnified by those great coal-burning, steam-producing contrivances. He links the current situation to the conditions of the pre-13, 14, and 15 Amendment slaves. Ignatius recognizes these unjust conditions and takes it into his own hands to right the wrong situation. The political rally he attempts to incite is intended to increase the working conditions of the Negroes working in the factory, but he loses support when they suspect him of being a convict. Their suspicions are further magnified when he suggests to kill the manager, regardless of his answer, as soon as he proposes the changes to the working conditions. Shortly thereafter, he's fired and is moved to the French section of the town to sell hot dogs. The French section represents the dregs of society and shows their lack of willingness to improve their own situation. The Night of Joy pub represents the bad part of society and how, regardless of how much they try to cover it up, society never really changes. You can see this through the facade of polished countertops and attempted cleanliness when it really doesn't affect anything, and the shop itself remains tarnished and dirty. Ignatius's room is used as a parallel to show the clutteredness of his mind. Through the random assortment of objects in his room, it parallels his inability to maintain a coherent state of thought for an extended period of time. Finally, at the movies, Ignatius shows his true nature. In his attempt to escape himself and to relax and sit back, he continues to find things to be negative about at the theater. He's condescending all the time, constantly. As the novel is told from Ignatius's perspective, the reader is given insight into his thoughts and moods through the entire novel. All in all, my name is Matt, and I'm a scholar of Toul from the West Brazil College of Engineering.
Thanks for your participation, Matt.
I'm James Quincy Duganberg. Today I will be discussing the major characters of A Confederacy of Dunces. Now you've already heard about Ignatius, but I'd like to go a little bit more in depth with him first. Let's begin. Ignatius is an eccentric. He's idealistic and creative, but almost sometimes to the point of delusion. He goes to movies in order to mock their perversity and express his outrage with the contemporary world's lack of theology and geometry. However, he also enjoys many modern comforts and conveniences. He is given to claiming that the rednecks of rural Louisiana hate all modern technology which they associate with progress. Ignatius is of the mindset that he does not belong in this world and that his numerous failings are the work of some higher power. He continuously refers to the goddess Fortuna, as my colleague, Mr. Schneebly, mentioned earlier. He believes that Fortuna has spun him downwards on the wheel of luck. Also, Ignatius loves to eat, and his fantasies lead in strange directions many a time. He has an aversion to ever leaving the town of his birth, and frequently bores friends and strangers with the story of his sole abortive journey from New Orleans, a trip to Baton Rouge on a Greyhound Cinecruiser bus, which Ignatius recounts as a traumatic ordeal of extreme horror. Myrna, the Minx Minkoff, is a Jewish beatnik from New York City, whom Ignatius met while she was in college in New Orleans. Though their political, social, religious, and personal orientations could hardly be more different, Myrna and Ignatius fascinate one another. The novel repeatedly refers to Myrna and Ignatius having engaged in tag-team attacks on the teachings of their college professors. Officially, they both deplore everything the other stands for, though neither of them will admit it. Their correspondence indicates that, though separated by half a continent, many of their actions are taken with the intention of impressing the other. Miss Riley, Irene Riley, has been widowed for 21 years. At first she allows Ignatius his space and takes him where he needs to go. But throughout the course of the novel, she learns to stand up for herself. She also has a drinking problem, most frequently indulging in muscatel, although Ignatius exaggerates that she is a raving, abusive drunk. She falls for Claude Robichaud, a fairly well-off man with a pension, and at the end of the novel, she decides she will marry him. But first she agrees with Santa Battaglia, who has not only recently become Miss Riley's new best friend, but also harbors a grand dislike for Ignatius, and attempts to send Ignatius to a mental hospital. And there you have it, the analysis of what are considered the three main characters of A Confederacy of Dunces: Ignatius, Myrna, and Irene Riley.
Very apt, Dillenberg.
Hello, I'm Winston Hefferton III. How are you today? Well, everybody, today I'm going to talk about some minor characters that did so not minor things, I would say. First, I'll start with Dorian Green. Well, people who have seen the book, as you well know that Dorian Green is a homosexual whose dreams of saving the world through degeneracy is shattered. An African-American porter at the Knot of Joy, his face is constantly hidden behind space-age sunglasses and a cloud of smoke. Working for well below the minimum wage, he remains in the Knot of Joy only because he fears he will be arrested for vagrancy if he is unemployed. Now to Claude Robichaud. A grandfather of 6, he is convinced that communists are taking over the country. When patrolman Mancuso attempts to arrest Ignatius, Claude sticks up for him and ends up arrested himself. Later in the novel, he becomes a potential husband for Mrs. Riley. We'll get on to that later though. Moving on to Darlene. Big girl at the Knot of Joy, she dreams of becoming an exotic dancer. She has a pet cockatoo that plays a prominent role in her stripper routine, since it has been trained to rip her clothes off. And now to Patrolman Mancuso, an inept yet hard-working police officer who suspects Ignatius of being a pervert and who attempts to arrest him. His sergeant, frustrated of his incompetence, punishes him by forcing him to wear a new costume each day. If he does not apprehend a suspicious character soon, he'll be thrown off the force. And now to Mr. Watson, owner of Maddie's Ramble Inn, a combination bar and grocery store, in case you're wondering. He gives Jones the idea of sabotaging the Night of Joy, which we discovered earlier is a place where women undress themselves with parakeets and whatnot. And now to Mr. Come here, Mr. Zalentina. Have a seat, please. Alright. A tall man with long black hair, Mr. and Mrs. Levy think he looks like a gangster. He replaces Ignatius in the filing department after the failed crusade for Moorish dignity. Mr. Gazzola says that he seems loyal, though he is a problem alphabetizing. Maybe not the brightest person, sharpest tongue to shit, don't know. And now to Sergeant. Patrolman Mancuso's boss, who out of frustration with Mancuso's ineptitude forces him to wear ridiculous costumes and spend long days sitting in the bus station bathroom. He threatens to kick Mancuso off the force if he does not shape up. As we learn later, he does shape up and makes a very, very crucial arrest. Now to Timmy, friend of Dorian Green, who dresses up like a sailor. He gets chained and shackled to the wall at Dorian's party. Can't tell you much else about him.
Winston Hefferton III, I found your analysis the antithesis of shallow and pedantic. Thank you. Perfection. Describing what we just heard. And that concludes our session for today. A wonderful analysis of A Confederacy of Dunces. Now, I must be on my way, but I hope that you have found some insight into this book. Adieu.
Oh man, Daniel, you got it bad.